It is 2 a.m. in New York, 7 in London, and 4 on a Wednesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. This is ARIRANG, Korea's only global network. Many Koreans have started making their way to their hometowns already ahead of the Lunar New Year holiday. Passengers are already beginning to crowd train stations and bus terminals on this Wednesday, a day before the four-day holiday begins. Transportation officials expect over 27 million people to travel around the country this Lunar New Year. Heavy traffic is expected on the highways starting this afternoon, and the congestion will reach its peak tomorrow. Some Koreans are even heading overseas during the holiday, with some 270,000 people expected to leave the country. And like we just said, millions of Koreans are expected to hit the roads and railways this Lunar New Year holiday to visit their families. But many are also taking to the skies. With this year's holiday being 4 days, a growing number of people are taking the opportunity to go overseas for a little R&R. Our Connie Lee reports.
The long holiday is nearly here in Korea. And while most are staying close to their homes and in the country, there are some that are taking advantage of the days off on Thursday and Friday to make a trip abroad.
Korean companies are giving out an average of 4.1 days of vacation for this Lunar New Year, slightly more than last year's 3.5 days.
According to 7 of the top travel agencies in Korea, about 40,000 people will be making a trek across the seas for this Lunar New Year holiday. So where are they going? Well, Hong Kong appears to be the top destination.
Last year, the Philippines and Thailand were the hottest destinations during the Lunar New Year. But this year, those places aren't even in the top 5. This holiday, many families booked tickets to Hong Kong for the winter festivities and for the shopping.
Officials say Koreans are shying away from the Philippines because the country is recovering from last year's typhoon, and Thailand because of the ongoing political protests there. So travelers chose destinations a little closer to home this time, with the second and third popular places being Japan and Taiwan.
We're also seeing the trend of more people traveling on their own instead of going with tour packages. This comes from the influence of popular reality TV shows where celebrities find their ways around foreign countries.
TV programs like Grandpas Over Flowers and Sisters Over Flowers, which chronicle the journeys of actors and actresses in different countries, have become so popular, in fact, that some Koreans are opting to visit the very same places. For the next long holiday coming up in the month of May, officials say Korean travelers are eyeing countries like Turkey and Croatia, with plane tickets already being fully booked for then. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
And we are just 1 day away from the start of the Lunar New Year holiday, and the celebratory atmosphere is already being felt all around the capital, Seoul. ARIRANG News cultural correspondent Park Ji-won reports from one of the city's many New Year's events for expats.
The Lunar New Year holiday is one of the most celebrated times of the year in Korea, and about 150 expats had a special chance to kick off the festivities in advance. They took part in various holiday traditions, from wearing the traditional Korean clothing hanbok to learning how to properly perform a New Year's vow to elders.
앉을 때 한 손을 이렇게 오른손으로 앉으셔서 이제 일어날 때는 좀 어렵고요. 근데 재밌었어요.
An ancestral worship ceremony the Koreans typically perform on Lunar New Year Day was demonstrated, as well as traditional Korean outdoor games like 제기차기 and 투호.
We don't have our families in here, but we have the opportunity to enjoy with friends and learn everything about Korean.
한국 사람이랑 같이 이렇게 세배도 하고 게임 많이 하고 뭔가 가족처럼 있는 거 느끼고 좋았습니다.
The Seoul Global Center invited the expats to share in the fun and joy of the holiday, as they will be away from their families during this holiday season.
설날 시간이 제일 자기 나라 생각나고 외롭잖아요. 그래서 서울에서 외국인 위한 설날 행사 많이 있어서 전통적인 문화 느낄 수 있고.
Participants also shared a meal of tteokguk or rice cake soup that Koreans traditionally eat on Lunar New Year morning. And this event is just one of the many festive activities organized by the Seoul City government in celebration of the Lunar New Year holiday. Royal palaces will be open for free on Lunar New Year's Day, and many traditional cultural performances will be offered for free at more than 20 museums, parks, and traditional theaters in Seoul during the holiday season that runs until the end of this week. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
However, it's not all good news this holiday season. The bird flu outbreak gripping this nation is showing no signs of letting up. The country is on high alert, especially as the Lunar New Year holiday, which will see millions on the march to their hometowns, begins tomorrow. Authorities say efforts to contain the spread over the next few days in particular will be vital. Kwon So-ah reports.
The battle against bird flu will continue over the Lunar New Year holiday, with disease prevention authorities tightening measures to prevent the virus spreading any further. Government employees, local self-governing bodies, the military and police will be on 24-hour standby over the 4-day holiday. Concerns are rising that with an estimated 30 million people on the move over the holiday period, the flu could spread to even more regions. The government has therefore ordered the installation of sterilization facilities and interchanges on highways across the nation. The public is also being asked to refrain from visiting poultry farms and migratory bird habitats and to take extra care not to step on animal droppings. The Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs said the virus can be contained if everyone pulls together.
I ask for your active cooperation in preventive measures during trips to your hometowns this Lunar New Year holiday, even if it's inconvenient.
The minister also said stock breeding farms should sterilize their facilities and surrounding areas every day and immediately report any suspected bird flu outbreaks to the Agriculture Ministry. There are now fears the virus has even spread to the southeastern part of the nation in Gyeongsang-Namdo province. The Agriculture Ministry said on Wednesday that a suspected case at a chicken farm in the city of Miryang was reported Tuesday night. Officials say around 70 chickens were found dead at the farm. New suspected cases also popped up in several farms in west of the country, and the virus was confirmed in Korea's central Chungcheongbuk-do province and another further south in Chungcheong-Namdo province on Tuesday. Meanwhile, farms that have been devastated by the mass culling of their ducks and chickens will receive government compensation before the end of the week. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Now, shifting our focus to the economy, the Korean economy is believed to be gaining momentum, with the nation's current account surplus reaching a record $70 billion last year. Industrial output also expanded at its fastest pace in more than 4 years last month. Still, the finance minister cautioned against having an overabundance of optimism. ARIRANG's economics correspondent Hwang Ji-hye has this report.
Despite concerns about emerging markets and the possible fallout from the U.S. Federal Reserve's expected decision on another cut in its stimulus, the fundamentals of the Korean economy appear strong enough to weather the impact. The Bank of Korea said Wednesday that the nation's current account surplus posted a record $70.7 billion last year. That is up nearly 50% from the previous record of $48 billion reached in 2012. The central bank attributed the record surplus to strong exports coupled with stable global commodities prices that kept import prices under control. Exports, which account for half of the nation's economy, rose 2.1% to reach nearly $560 billion, while imports dropped 0.8% to $515 billion. For December only, Korea posted a surplus for the 23rd straight month, with the amount standing at nearly $6.5 billion. Korea's industrial output, which includes production in the mining, manufacturing, gas, and electricity industries, also grew 3.4% last month, the fastest pace in more than 4 years. While Korea's Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok said that market instability in emerging economies would have a limited impact on the Korean economy, he cautioned against having either too much optimism or groundless anxiety. Hwang Jie, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, the local bourse in Korea ended the holiday-shortened week on a high note this Wednesday, as Turkey's substantial interest rate hikes eased fears about emerging market stability ahead of the Fed's policy meeting outcome. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi finished up 1.3% at 1941. The index was little changed for the week, gaining a mere 0.03%. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also closed up 1.2%, while on the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency closed stronger against the greenback at roughly 1,070 won. Now, local stock markets will be closed on Thursday and Friday for the Lunar New Year holiday and will reopen on Monday. Now, Korean lawmakers are moving to address the massive data leak that affected millions of credit card holders earlier this month. This as financial regulators plan to audit all of the nation's credit card firms for signs of trouble. Kim Young-gil has more.
The National Assembly will launch an investigation into the massive data leak that struck 3 card firms and affected millions of cardholders earlier this month. At a joint press briefing on Tuesday, the floor leaders of the ruling Saenuri main opposition Democratic Party announced they had agreed to investigate the leak and draw up countermeasures. The investigation will aim to uncover the reasons for the leak at the 3 credit card firms, KB국민, 농협, and Lotte. Specifically, it will target the firm's system for securing data and sharing information with their affiliates. The investigation will be handled by the Parliamentary Policy Committee and will begin in February. Separate hearings on legislation against data theft will be conducted by other standing committees. The list of the countermeasures could include improvements to data management systems and legislation against the recurrence of similar incidents. Korea's financial regulators are currently auditing the 3 credit card firms in question and will start auditing 6 others as a follow-up measure beginning in February. This will be the first time the financial watchdog has audited all of the nation's credit card firms. Prosecutors announced earlier this month that the personal and financial data of 20 million credit card holders and tens of millions of bank customers had been leaked, prompting fears that the information could be used in scams, as well as concerns about the size and scope of data collection in Korea. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
With rapid changes in the global economy, up-to-date business and financial news has never been more essential. See what's making markets tick around the globe. We speak to the experts and cover the biggest financial stories.
North Korea provocation.
Quite good. We received a lot of positive feedback, especially from local.
The South Korean and U.S. envoys on North Korea held talks on this Wednesday on ways to resume the stalled 6-nation talks on denuclearizing North Korea. Now, after meeting with South Korea's top negotiator on North Korean nuclear issues, Cho Tae-yong, Glenn Davies, the U.S. Special Representative for North Korea policy, said both countries are hoping to see a sincere change in action from the North. Cho reiterated the need for Pyongyang to change its attitude, saying that the North has nothing to gain from possessing nuclear arms. Now, in separate development, a North Korean ambassador to China, Ji Jae-ryong, said Pyongyang supports the resumption of the 6-party talks. During a press conference at the North Korean embassy in Beijing the same day, Ji said the North is on board with the 6-party talks and said he wants the other countries to follow suit. But he was quick to add that denuclearization cannot be achieved as long as the United States' hostile policy against the North continues, saying that Pyongyang will be compelled to possess the arms to protect itself from any outside threats. And it has been 2 days since South Korea made its proposal to hold reunions next month for families separated since the Korean War, but Seoul is still awaiting an answer from North Korea. Now, Seoul's Unification Ministry says it sent a message to the North through the Inter-Korean hotline earlier this Wednesday morning, urging it to reply as soon as possible if it is sincere about resuming the reunions. Now, on Monday, Seoul offered to reopen the long-suspended event from February 17th to the 22nd and to hold working-level talks on this Wednesday, that is today, to go over the details. Now, many are expecting the North to reply today, and if so, the ministry said working-level talks on the reunions can still take place on Thursday or even immediately after the Lunar New Year holiday on Monday. Now, we will keep you updated on the latest developments throughout the day. Meanwhile, the U.S. state of Georgia has taken a meaningful step toward calling the body of water between Korea and Japan East Sea. The Georgia State Senate unanimously passed a resolution Tuesday in which it refers to the water by the Korean name East Sea and not by the Japanese name of Sea of Japan. Now, the non-binding resolution was put forward by a Republican state senator, and this comes as the U.S. state of Virginia awaits its lower house's decision on whether or not to require public school texts in Virginia to call the water both the East Sea and the Sea of Japan. Korea argues the name Sea of Japan reflects Japan's imperialistic past and that at the very least, both names should be used. U.S. President Barack Obama says he is prepared to act without Congress by using his executive power to advance parts of his agenda in order to fulfill a pledge he made to make 2014 a year of action. Now, in his State of the Union address Tuesday, President Obama focused on issues related to the economy, namely income inequality and job creation. He also addressed issues related to climate change and the environment, saying the U.S. needs to do more to be energy independent, such as alternating oil imports with cleaner natural gas. Now, the U.S. president also touched upon immigration reform, including a path to citizenship for the country's 12 million undocumented residents. The speech comes ahead of congressional elections this November, and with the U.S. polls indicating the public is dissatisfied with how Obama is handling the economy, it remains to be seen whether the current divisions in Congress persist once the elections are over. Now, Samsung Group said Tuesday that it would indefinitely put on hold a new hiring plan that would have allowed university principals to recommend top-performing students to Samsung. Now, since the plan was reported in detail over the weekend, it has stirred controversy among college graduates and job seekers, and that was exacerbated when it announced that Samsung was scrapping the initial plan. So what is at the core of this latest incident? Joining us live in the studio is Dr. Kim Byung-ju, the head of KLEMP Consulting and a regular commentator on this program. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
Let's first go over how the current system works. If I wanted to get into Samsung Group, what would I need to go through?
Not you, but there are several different ways to get into a Samsung Group. There is a lot of lateral entry. Professionals like you actually could enter at a higher level. But we're talking about the college graduates
of
here.
Course.
And for college graduates, for Samsung Group itself, what they've been doing is that they've been trying to offer the open and fair chance for everyone to apply, and that principle was set up back in 1996 in my recollection. And actually, Samsung Group was the first one who actually introduced, all the way back in 1957, what's called the regularly scheduled open public hiring process. And with that process, since 1996, 1995 actually, Samsung announced this principle of giving everyone equal chance, meaning what that means is actually in the process of hiring these new college graduates, what's called SSAT, Samsung Aptitude Test, sits in the centerpiece, as the centerpiece of this hiring system. It's Samsung's own design examination itself, and it tests different qualities of candidates. And going through that, after that, you have to turn in your resume, and there are several interviews, and that's the process how it goes. The problem is, with the SSAT as the centerpiece, so many people, so many college graduates have been studying for this exam, and now we even have Hagwon services, private education institutes that offer courses for training students for getting prepared for this exam.
Wow.
And the competition has been just so intense. And in Korea we have had this tradition of like a national high officials exam where all the elites went for, and now SSAT has taken a part of that national phenomena where everybody was going for. So a lot of people are saying, well, this is like a one-time examination, cannot actually tell Samsung executives that these new talents are actually qualified talents, and they need more feedback from the universities themselves.
And exclusively for Samsung, right?
Right.
I mean, as for national examinations, it was for a nationwide exam for high-ranking
Same
officials.
for the entire country, right?
Right.
But the thing is, several other chaebols are following the suit, and they have introduced their own exam as well. So this is kind of like not exactly fully typical, but it's one of the leading examples of the process.
And how did Samsung want to change that?
So because of those criticisms about nationwide fever and lack of chance for the employers themselves to examine in depth about the quality of the candidates, what Samsung proposed was introducing this system that you briefly mentioned, asking the presidents of the university to recommend some of their top students. So they wanted to add that, and for like a nationwide 200 universities, they said these presidents can actually send recommendations for their top students for in total about 5,000 student candidates.
Now, especially with the job market for the youth employment or job market for young job seekers being very bleak these days in this country, this initially the public seemed to have welcomed it, and then later on that was the mood just changed dramatically.
Yeah, interesting thing was what Samsung did was while inviting these recommendations, they actually offered a quota for each specific universities. And after looking at this list of 200 universities nationwide, universities got really upset about it. Other than perhaps the top university that sat on the top, Sungkyunkwan University, Samsung affiliated, they got the quota of 115 students that could be recommended by the president.
So Samsung designated the number of students that will be recommended from each school.
Right.
Ah.
And Seoul National University followed with 110, Yonsei 100, Busan National University 90, and Jeonbuk National University and Ewha Women's University 30 each, and Jeju National University 10. So that gap between 115 on the top and then 10, not exactly at the bottom, at the lower side. These people on the lower side got really, really, really upset, and they said this is unequal treatment. We actually prefer that existing conventional way of open competition, and this new system that Samsung proposed is a nonsense. Politicians rose up, and even mayor of Gwangju City spoke up, said this is a nonsense.
Right, and we just heard news that students from Korea University, in fact, laid out a logo saying no thanks to Samsung. But how competitive is it to get into Samsung?
Right, this is a very important background information. Let's bring up graphs that we have prepared here that will tell us interesting number. Okay, going over and beyond these numbers, you can even see the competition ratio, 22.2 to 1. That's the competition. If there are 23 people applying for one job and applying Samsung, that's the competition ratio, the latest one. And just check this out. What basically is happening is in Korea, last year, for instance, 480,000 graduates graduated from university. And how many people applied for this taking exam? 200,000. That's 40% of all students nationwide, everybody in the country. So that's like unbelievable phenomena that we are looking at. So this is
one company,
one group, and this tells us the popularity and intensity of this competition.
So, of course, then we're seeing the worries of the rise of the so-called Samsung Republic.
Right, of course. This adds big time to this big controversy of Samsung Republic. I mean, there have been reports, even though this is controversial in terms of methodology of measurement, but reports are saying Samsung Group's overall revenue accounts for 23% of Korea's GDP, and they're saying all the Samsung folks are controlling all different parts around the society, journalism, media, and all, even culture and all that. Now everybody's going for the option of working for Samsung. So this is concerning phenomenon in the minds of many people.
So back to the main essence of our topic, Samsung basically said that they will scrap this this plan that they came up with within days of announcement. What are the options for Samsung to improve its hiring system?
In the long run, experts are saying that Samsung should have second thoughts about having this open, regularly scheduled hiring. They do, as I said before, they have this hiring systems through which professionals can enter laterally and at a higher level. They should expand that, they're saying. And they should reduce this regularly scheduled open hiring for college graduates. And also, there's a problem with hiring everybody for the group itself has a problem. They should allow each of their companies to hire their own folks, their own new hires based on their own requirements. Different Samsung companies should have that rather than having this one-time, one-shot, one-time exam. And so they say this actually creates a distortion. That's one of the ways to go. And for Korean society, we should just forget about this asking a company to come up with certain system of hiring people based on so-called social consensus. And I think that's fundamentally wrong. This is one company. They have a right to hire their people the way they want it.
Whoever they want to.
Right. We understand the popularity and the intensity of competition, but we got to think twice about the overall situation. This is pretty crazy.
Right, and at the same time, we are giving that much power to Samsung by not allowing to change its hiring system without social consensus.
Critical point, right there.
All right, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, thank you so much for today. Have a good holiday, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Same to you too. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast, but stay tuned to ARIRANG. We have a lot more coming your way on Early Edition at 6.